3CR Radiothon 2024. Sound on for solidarity.
Coming up is a podcast brought to you by the dedicated and diverse volunteers at 3CR. Just a quick message before you get there. For the month of June, we're asking listeners to donate to the station to help us keep going. We rely on the generous donations of community to survive. Go to 3cr.org.au/donate and show your support for community-owned and community-run media. Thanks for your support and happy listening.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Palestine Remembered. I'm coming to you from Ballarat, where I'm meeting with some activists and friends of Palestine as we will be talking, building the movement here, but also marching and rallying for Palestine. Very importantly, you just heard Giselle talk about Radiothon. Radiothon's happening in a couple of weeks. Robert and Yusuf are going to join me live, so be sure to save your pennies and call in. We'll have a little bit of live chat on the radio, so we want your donations and your support for 3CR, which is so very important. You know, the volunteers and the team that are part of keeping 3CR on the air are so very, very important. So a big shout out to everyone at 3CR and, of course, my executive producer and assistant in this show since October, Giselle. So thanks so very much, Giselle. Friends, as you know, we've had significant growth, within the movement. You know, increasingly, the world is seeing Israel for the pariah state it is. Amazingly for a country like France that has been so deeply, deeply complicit in the dispossession of the Palestinians from its colonial enterprise post-World War I with the Sykes-Picot Agreement in carving up the Levant, with their British conspirators and the Balfour Declaration, but also through to the 1956 invasion of Sinai and its complicity then with the Zionists and the Israelis when President Nasser endeavoured to when President Nasser nationalised the Suez. So the French, amazingly, have told the Israelis that they can't participate in a weapons fair in France, which is the start of what we want to continue and should be the focus of all of our efforts, is to marginalise, expose and out apartheid Israel. So apartheid Israel cannot participate in a weapons fair in France. Zionists, the end is nigh, the bell is tolling. When France, a war criminal state that still has colonial interests and enterprises from the Canakia in the Pacific through to whole chunks of Africa, when France says you're not welcome, you know that the ugliness that is settler colonialism, the ugliness that is Zionism, the ugliness that is the apartheid state of Israel and all of its criminality is being exposed, and you are towards the end of times for you. As I said previously, peak Israel was October 6th. You're never ever going back to there, and everybody knows who you are. The Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement has made a very clear call for all of us to boycott, divest and sanction the apartheid state. At APAN, we've released an activist toolkit. Please visit the APAN website, apan.org.au, apan.org.au. There's a few toolkits there for you to download. There's a council motion toolkit, there's a kitchen table toolkit, but there's also the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions toolkit. So get in there, have a look around. There's opportunities for you to do a 2-minute action, a 2-hour action, or a 2-week action. The Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions movement now is increasing the call for Israel to be thrown out of the Olympics. Israeli athletes should not be allowed to participate in the Olympics under the Israeli flag. They should be treated exactly the way the Russian athletes are being treated. They can participate as under the international flag because this is not about human beings. This is about the apartheid state, the genocidal apartheid state. And if there is ever the trigger for normal, I'm saying normal, people who haven't actually realised just how gross and murderous the Zionist apartheid state is. When a country ignores a ruling by the International Court of Justice, a ruling to stop killing, ignores that ruling and continues, as we saw, Israel dropped a 2,000-pound bomb, a ton, like a small car, onto a tent city for people who've been displaced 5 or 6 times, living in tents. When you drop a small car of a bomb onto a tent city where people have been told to go to be safe and commit the sort of egregious massacre after the International Court of Justice says, stop committing genocide, you are beyond rogue. With the International Criminal Court now issuing warrants, or about to issue warrants for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu, the quote-unquote democratically elected leader of the only democracy in the Middle East. These are terms that we will long remember and long laugh about once the demise of the Zionist entity is complete. When you get threatened, get told that the arrest warrants are on their way, you get a ruling to say stop, and you continue to act, there is no question you're a pariah. There is no question you're an outlaw. There is no question that your assumed right, quote-unquote, to exist, this whole pretense. Do you accept that Israel has a right to exist? No state has a right to exist. Humans have rights to exist. It's states' obligations to protect humans and humanity. This notion that Israel has a right to exist, Australia doesn't have a right to exist. No country has a right to exist, and certainly no apartheid genocidal state has any right. That once these orders have been issued, to ignore them, once the warrants are issued, and there's 120-odd countries that are signatories to the Rome Statute that will be obliged, as Australia will be, to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu or Yoav Gallant, that he will not be able to travel. That once he has those warrants issued, no one, can you imagine taking a photograph with Benjamin Netanyahu the day after a warrant is issued for his arrest for war crimes and crimes against humanity? Could you imagine taking that photo? Because your legacy will be stained for eternity. And that isolation for apartheid Israel will continue to grow. So what we need from our friends, our allies, those that support Palestine, is to increase the pressure on apartheid Israel. What does that look like for us as Australians? Firstly, if you haven't yet signed on to the campaign to demand that your superannuation fund divest from any from the UN list of complicit companies that are complicit in the oppression of Palestinians. If you haven't signed on to that, please just Google BDS Super, Boycott Divestment Sanctions Super campaign. Go on the APAN website under the 2-minute actions. You'll find a link there. There's a generic form that will allow you to send a pre-populated email. You just need your member number. Send that through to your super fund, and it will say to them, I, Bob, want to know if you have made me unwittingly and unwillingly complicit in the oppression of Palestinians by using some of my retirement funds to invest in companies that the UN has found to be complicit in the oppression of Palestinians. We're very close to launching stage 2. Over 10,000 Australians, I think, almost 20,000, something like that, have already signed on to that. So please join us in that action. But speak to your friends and family, wherever that might be. It could be in mothers' groups, it could be at the tennis club, it could be down at the pub. Speaking about Palestine used to come with, look, people were reticent to, a bit scared to, etc. No longer. Palestine is a cause you can speak to. Palestine is something you will find friends with. Palestine, the humanity of the Palestinians is very real. If you speak about Palestine in your workplaces, your unions, your friendship places, you will find many allies. People who've been perhaps in the past aren't scared to speak about Palestine anymore. We need to increase the understanding of what boycotts and divestments and sanctions are. They worked in South Africa. They're going to work in Palestine. Apartheid was wrong in South Africa, and apartheid is wrong in Palestine. This is a moment in history where we will say that we know we did our part, because Palestine is going to be free. Palestine is going to be free. We've never been closer. And I was saying to some people very recently, sometimes you go through life and it takes decades for days to happen, and sometimes decades happen in a day. And certainly at some point in the future we will look back and see the cataclysm that was October 7 was in fact the catalyst for the end of the apartheid state. So anybody that's in Ballarat and listening, come out today to the rally. We're at 12 o'clock. I'll be speaking today in Ballarat. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, of course, our standard rally. Make sure you get along, get out and get loud and get proud for Palestine. We've got a couple of ads to play and some announcements, and then my speech from the ZIM shipping action last week. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends, share the podcast, and remember, there's never been a better time for a free Palestine.
Stand in solidarity with Palestine this Sunday.
Hi, it's Nasser from Palestine Remembered, Australia's only dedicated show on Palestine. Join me every Saturday morning at 9:30 and very importantly, get along to our rallies. Sunday, 12 o'clock, State Library. Join us.
We have to mobilise to show our support for Palestine. 12 p.m, State Library, this Sunday.
Rally to demand freedom and justice for Palestine. No war on Gaza.
Free Palestine Melbourne is a 3CR supporter.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM. Visit the 3CR website at 3cr.org.au/podcast to hear the most recent recording from each show, or 3cr.org.au/streaming to listen live.
My comrades, thank you so very much for being here. To Uncle Andrew, thank you so much for that. Welcome to country. We need to remember, we need to recall, we need to speak out and remember just the genocide that we're seeing in Gaza is the same genocide that happened here. We've got to keep talking about the shared fight, the shared struggle for all Indigenous people. That this was, is and always will be Aboriginal land, as Palestine always was and will be Palestinian. Yeah. And I keep saying it, but we've got to keep saying it. We've got to keep remembering it. Take it to your workplaces, take it everywhere. The fight for Palestine is an anti-racist movement. It's an anti-colonial movement. It's against any form of hate, however that hate may express itself, from gender hatred, from homophobia to Islamophobia to anti-Semitism. Whatever hate you might have in your heart, you do not belong here. This is a movement of love, of inclusion, of community, of a better world for all people. That while we're fighting for Palestine today and we're fighting for Indigenous rights here, we will not forget our brothers and sisters in Kanak and the Kanaki people as they fight today. Yep. When Macron thinks he needs to fly to the other side of the world and still be in France, shame! Shame on our government for not saying something. Shame on our government for not doing anything but to be complicit in the oppression of another occupied people. Shame! And that our fight for the Kanakis and our fight for Indigenous people here and in Palestine is the same fight in West Papua, in the Congo, in Haiti, in Sudan, in Western Sahara, in Kashmir, for every oppressed people, wherever they may be. We are not free until we were all free. Now, my friends, I've been an advocate for my whole life. Brother Kami, a magnificent Palestinian scholar and educator, a medical doctor, a survivor of the Nakba of 1948. Her home called West Jerusalem is currently occupied by the New York Times. She says, as a Palestinian, you could be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an artist, a newspaper reporter. Your first job is advocate. But as an advocate, if you have no power, you have no agency. And as a Palestinian advocate, until the 6th of October, we had no agency. We had truth, we had justice, we had everything on our side, but no power. But we are the power. You are the power. They can no longer ignore us, they can no longer deny us, and we will be free because of each and every one of you. And that starts in your workplaces, in your schools, in your hospitals, wherever it might be, your mother's groups, your father's groups, the golf clubs, the tennis clubs. But it starts also with our unions. It starts with our unions, with each of you, because you are power. You are industrial power, you are people power, you are political power. Our unions, you know what you've done. You know the collective work and good work you've done, from 8-hour work days, from occupational health and safety to fair work rights to employment contracts to ensure that staff couldn't be sacked. We know how powerful the union can be in the anti-Vietnam moratorium marches, anti-apartheid struggle. It's time to get those unions strong again. We did it before and we can do it again. Peace and justice is union business. You are the union. The people are the union. Get in your unions and tell them enough. Enough of your silence. Enough being quiet. Enough genocide. We need our unions to stand tall and stand strong for humanity. What we're seeing in Palestine, what we're seeing in Kanak, what we see everywhere else here is the standard that will be applied to us. If we let this shit go, it's coming to us. It's our collective responsibility as advocates, as solidarity workers, as union members to stand up for every worker, for every human, whomever they may be, wherever they may be. Now, my friends, I'm sure you've been following the encampments, yeah? Those wonderful students, those beautiful, beautiful students who have stood resolute, who have stood, you know, as union people, many of you have negotiated working conditions or pay rights or access or whatever it might be, and there is a power disparity. There is a power disparity, which is why we need to get together collectively and bargain together, and that's what unions do and why unions need to be strong. But for a student, an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, who is paying over odds for an education that is stained in blood, shame. The power disparity that exists on a university is astronomical. Astronomical. 19-year-olds risking their education, risking their future employment opportunities to stand up for justice. We should take a leaf from those students. They are our tomorrow, they are our future, they are strong and unbroken and winning. They are winning. And if you look at Melbourne University, the most powerful university on this continent, the richest university on this continent, a university that refused to negotiate and would not be broken, they broke. They broke because everybody worked together. When Pip, I don't know, she's the vice chancellor or something like that, when she said, I'm issuing an eviction notice and calling the cops, who came to defend the students? Their teachers. 200 teachers stood their peers in lines to protect their students. The community came to protect the students. The students did not buckle. And they won. We've said and we say and we continue to say, the people united will never be defeated, and there's an exemplar. And that win is happening all over the country and all over the world. Curtin University buckled, Sydney University's in negotiations. These are but one step. We were on October 6th, nowhere near the building. These kids picked up a ladder, took it to the building, and they're on the first step and reaching for the second. All power to them, all power to the people, all power to every union. No, you must know, they have smashed us with capitalism, with consumerism, with teaching us to sit in a box and just consume life from a screen. But know that we are the power. We, the people, are the power. Electorally, monetarily, consumer-wise, advocacy, whatever it might be, we need to be together to fight for that justice because they're not listening. The international court, the highest court on earth, said stop. One of the ministers in Israel said, I told my department to warm up the shredder so we could shred this opinion. Shame! Shame! Shame on Albo, who when the ICJ said we're going to issue warrants, he said, I don't comment on domestic cases, let alone international cases. Shame! Shame on you, Albo. History is going to judge you very poorly. If you want to know what you would have been doing in the fight against apartheid South Africa, this is what you would have been doing, equivocating and finding merely words to move from a point of justice to a point of negotiation. Shame on you, Albo, and we're not going to forget. We are aiding and abetting in this genocide, from corporate contracts to allowing ZIM ships to come, from education degrees that are complicit in weapons manufacturers like Boeing, etc., HTA. Shame on them. And if that's not enough, if it's not enough that our Prime Minister can't stand firm, when Germany said we would arrest Netanyahu if there was a warrant. And we've got a guy like Peter Dutton, our alternative Prime Minister. There's got to be a country we've got to move to if this guy doesn't. Our alternative Prime Minister says we've got to leave the International Court of Justice. Leave. What the hell has become of this joint when a guy like Peter Dutton is our alternative? It's happened because we've been silent. It's happened because we've let him be there. We need to go from this march and shout and scream and work in our workplaces, in our communities, amongst our families and friends, and wake them up. Yes. We've got to wake them up. Okay, my call to each of you, if you are members of unions, go back to your unions, advocate, lead, push. Challenger unions, we need every union to be here, not just our friends and brothers, the good ones that are here, but everyone that isn't. The move for Palestine today is huge. People have finally seen what we've been saying forever. That Zionism is racism. That Zionism as a form of white supremacy and chauvinism and patriarchy will kill, will destroy, will murder, rape and burn, and it will do so when aided and abetted by a compliant Western government and a compliant media, and we're seeing it live on our screens. A 4K digital genocide. It behooves every single one of us to stand up, scream out, shout out, not in my name! Not in my name! What is required is total liberation. The ending of apartheid, the ending of genocide, the ending of colonisation, and the ending of the occupation of all of Palestine, from the river to the sea. We will be free! We want and we demand justice, and Palestine is the start, my friends. Palestine is the start. When Palestine is free, we will start liberating the rest of the world, wherever that may be and whomever they might be. As Martin Luther King said, true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. Justice on the term of the colonised, not on the terms of the coloniser. On our terms only. Only we can give peace. And this is a shout out to our Zionists that are here, because they're watching everything we do. Come up close, we know you're here, take a good picture. I don't mind smiling for your camera. You need to know, Zionists, that you are not free. Yes! There is no freedom. There is no freedom when you're an oppressor. There is no freedom when you're an occupier. There is no freedom when your perception of freedom equals killing, equals oppression, equals genocide, but you are trapped. We might be occupied and you might be standing on our heads, but you're stuck here too. Your language of hate is not our language. Your language of hate is not our language. Ours is a language of love and belonging, and it's true of every single Indigenous people who get their strength from the land, who get their strength from their ancestors, who get their strength from history and connection from millennia. Land you bomb is not land you own. Land you commit an ecocide on is not land you love. Indigenous language is love, it's embrace, it's belonging. Get your foot off our heads, and unlike you, our language of love will embrace you. You'll have to say sorry, like a really big sorry. But you will say sorry, and justice will be on our terms. And today you cannot find a South African who was against apartheid. You can't find it. Every one of them, it was pro Nelson Mandela. I mean, how did apartheid exist with all of these against apartheid white South Africans who managed to come to Australia for some reason, you know? They all left after Nelson Mandela got out of jail. Know this, Zionists. Know this. You might be taking our picture today and selectively choosing quotes that you want to report in rags like The Australian. We've got the receipts. We're not going to let you forget. We're not going to let you forget. Palestine is going to be free from the river to the sea. You can colonise our land. You will not colonise our words. You will not colonise our words. From the river to the sea. Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you, everyone.
Stand in solidarity with Palestine this Sunday.
Hi, it's Nasser from Palestine Remembered, Australia's only dedicated show on Palestine. Join me every Saturday morning at 9:30, and very importantly, get along to our rallies. Sunday, 12 o'clock, State Library. Join us.
We have to mobilise to show our support for Palestine. 12 p.m, State Library, this Sunday.
Rally to demand freedom and justice for Palestine. No war on Gaza.
Free Palestine Melbourne is a 3CR supporter.
3CR Radiothon 2024. Sound on for solidarity.
Did you enjoy listening to that podcast? 3CR is a community radio station, and you, the listener, are a part of that community. Right now, it's our radiothon. We need you to pitch in with a few dollars to keep the station going. We can't do it without you. It's easy. Head to 3cr.org.au/donate. Your donations really matter.